They try to silence the truth we shout, but we're still here, we're still calling out. Corruption hides behind a badge of name. We light the fire, expose the shame. We're justice seekers, we'll fight the fight for every voice lost in the night. My life mattered is the cry we sing for the ones they tried to bury within. It's just us, we're a movement wide. Together we rise, won't run nor hide. The stories echo, the pain runs deep. For stolen lives we can't just weep. Elected power, but their hearts are cold. We'll bring the truth, let it be told. We're justice seekers, we'll fight the fight for every voice lost in the night. My life mattered is the cry we sing for the ones they tried to bury within. It's just us, we're a movement wide. Together we rise, won't run nor hide. We're justice seekers, we'll fight the fight. The hidden wounds, undo the harm. Calling out corruption, we'll stand tall. For justice and truth, we'll risk it all. My life mattered is the cry we sing. Together we rise, let freedom ring.
Hello, good evening, everyone. Welcome to Social Change Warriors, our Thursday night edition of Calling Out Corruption. I'm Catherine Page, your host and founder of Social Change Warriors, and we are a victim advocacy program. We are here to stand with families whose loved ones have been alive at the hands of someone else, and they do not have justice for their loved one. So we are here on Wednesdays, Thursdays, every other week, most Fridays, and we are here to share the plight that the families are going through and what is happening to their loved ones. They are not getting justice, and what can be done about that. That's the frustrating element in most of the loved ones that we're standing for, is that their cases are at a halt. In some ways, they're going cold by the day. None of the victims that we are advocating for are technically cold cases, but some of them are cases that were never investigated. The person was actually framed for their own unaliving, and it is now coming out, and these cases are now being looked at again and hopefully soon to be overturned or turned back to the status of homicide where an investigation can pick back up. Many of the cases we're following and advocating for, the victims just don't have justice yet. Their cases are just not moving along. Doesn't appear to be any new evidence. The police aren't forthcoming, not really making statements anymore. The families are just left frustrated, sad, living in a horrific daze of despair. And that's really the way to explain it. The families that I've gotten the chance to email with and speak with in person and meet in person here in Florida, it's just an everyday battle to get up, do what you have to do to survive while you know your loved one is either still missing with no justice or they They were unalived. You've had their memorial, you've had their funeral, but there is no arrest. There is no justice. It's an absolutely horrible place to be. And we want to join with all of you out there that want to advocate for victims of crimes and homicides and unjust behavior, and we want to help you with that. So that's why we have been live streaming for almost a year now. Our year anniversary is coming up in the next few days, and we'll let you know about possibly having a special edition where we may have some of our family members come on. We'll definitely go over all of the cases that we've been advocating for, all of the humans whose lives have been lost by the hands of others. So welcome again to Thursday night with us, which is our night for calling out corruption, and it's our work night. So as you all know that have been joining us, Thursdays we take a little bit deeper dive look into the cases that we have chosen to advocate for by meeting their family or their friends, looking at police reports, if we need to, looking at autopsy reports, trying to help the families make sense of why their police investigation has stalled, and advocate for them, advocate for justice for them, and advocate for their case not to be forgotten and not to end up going into a cold case status. So tonight we have Brittany joining us, who I have been fortunate enough to meet on the Facebook platform. She also advocates for other victims in the Florida area and around the country, why her in of herself, she has been a victim. Her dear friend Dishaun was taken from her by the hands of someone else, and we started looking into what happened to Dishaun Hudson on that fateful night at Applebee's, and we got about halfway through reading through the police reports and figuring out the who, what, why, when, where, how. So tonight, I'll just give a brief introduction of where we were a couple weeks ago, but actually it's been a month already because it was right before the 4th of July. But you're welcome to go back to our library. If you go to our Social Change Warriors platform and you go to our live tab, you will be able to find all of the lives that we have done since last August, representing and advocating for all the victims of homicide and their families that we are working with. So I'm just going to bring you guys up here for a second. Let me add Brittany to the stage and bring her up with me here. Hello, Brittany.
Hi, how are you?
Good. It's so good to see you. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you so much for all you do.
Oh, you're so welcome. I really appreciate your thanks. You're always so kind to me, and I really appreciate that. This is just a mission for me in my retirement years. I want to give back the best I can to my community and to families that have gone through horrific situations where they have lost a loved one. And that's just something that they can never truly get over, as you know. And I think we hear this a lot where people will say, oh, just give it time, or, you'll get over it eventually. But that's not true. And any of us that have been through a tragic loss, and in your case, the loss of your friend Dishaun, and in all of our other victims that we've been advocating for, their families, you truly do not ever get over losing someone. It's a new way of life. You have to go on without them, and you have to figure out how that looks and how to navigate that. But I always want to caution everybody out there, if you have the habit of telling people to get over something, get over saying that, because it's just not a good thing to say. It's not healthy for people to hear. It's not helpful. So, and everybody mourns and grieves in their own way and in their own time. And for most of us, it's a lifelong grieving when we've lost someone in a tragic way. And even when you lose a loved one to old age and they're not with you anymore, it's horrible. We have to go on without people we love. But when it's by the hands of someone else, when your person is missing by the hands of someone else, or they have been unalived by the hands of someone else, it's a whole different level of egregious. And there is really no getting over that ever. It's just something you have to figure out a way to navigate, and helping your community and your family with other cases like you've done. I'm sure it can be very soothing for you. Is it, Brittany?
Yes, ma'am. Things are okay at the moment. There's so many people going through things. I'm trying to stay positive and keep positive and not do rational things, and just stay within the guidelines of everything. And I just pray to get justice for myself and other people going through everything that they're going through.
And thank you for joining us last night on our Wednesday night show, our Angry Bitch Club, where we were highlighting the life and the disappearance and missing status of Sarah Ebersol. It's been very frustrating for all of her friends over in the Reddick Ocala area, her family, her sister Michelle, Karen, other advocates. Yeah, it's just it's heartbreaking when you just have no answers. And how does a person just go missing, right? How does a person just vanish out of thin air and nobody can figure out where they are? And there's no clues, there's no evidence, there's nothing. I'm just so frustrated with Sarah's missing persons case, probably more than any case I've ever followed in this true crime venue. And when I was a police officer, some of the cases that happened in my town, on my campus, involving homicides, I just never seen one quite like Sarah's, with just literally thin air. And when we were watching Nancy Grace last night, we were all commenting on how stunned she was that, and she brought up some of the others, and these other women who have gone missing into thin air as well without a trace. And she brought up Natalie Holloway. Do you remember who else she mentioned? She mentioned, Smart. Was it Kristen?
Oh, yeah.
Kristen
yes,
Smart?
ma'am. I do believe so.
Yeah, she compared Sarah to those cases because they're very similar, where one minute they're with friends, they're having a good time. You see photos of them, they're alive and well. And then boom, an hour later, they're just gone. And literally like that show Gone Without a Trace. That was, I believe, was that a Dateline episode or was that its own show? I remember that one from.
Can't really remember.
Yeah, but that's pretty much what this is like. And for the families, it's horrific. Now, in Dishaun's case, he was never missing. This case of Dishaun Hudson, where he lost his life, that involves a very bizarre situation where he was out, and you correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm still getting to know Dishaun's case thanks to you. And I've been reading through all the documentation that you've given me, and we'll continue to read through a police report that I was about halfway through when we met last time. But it was going to be his birthday soon, in a couple days, right? And he was out pre-celebrating, right? So pre-celebrating his birthday. And with a friend, he was with another friend, maybe another, was it one or two friends he was with? Was it just one?
It was a couple. I know there was a girl named Miranda that he was with, and at the Applebee's location as well. And she's the one in the video clip that is posted about what happened, and it's horrible.
Right. And let me, I'm just going to take our slideshow back here a little bit. I'll give some updates on some of our other victims we're advocating for here in a little while, but I want to just start right off with Dishaun. So Dishaun was born on March 10th of 1984. He passed away on March 7th of 2023. And his birthday was just in a couple days. So like you were saying, he was having a pre-celebration of his birthday out and about in the Orlando area. Now, his homicide took place at an Applebee's, inside of an Applebee's, and it was right around bar time, correct?
Yeah, right before closing, according to the statements. They were a group of people, not just him. They were called inside for last drink call if anybody wanted one, or right before closing. And then he was immediately ambushed, or questioned, should I say, about having a weapon, which he did not. And it was later proven that he was unarmed, and it's classified as a homicide, but yet there was never an arrest or anything.
Exactly. And there was another case that we've been following. Let me go back here. Jason Veach was also classified as a homicide. He was basically held down in a bar by patrons due to the fact that they thought that he was a threat. And another man had actually gone to his car and brought a hatchet into the bar and threatened Jason. He wanted him to stop being loud and obnoxious, and he actually threatened him with a hatchet. Now, that person has never had any charges for bringing a deadly weapon and using it in the shape of a deadly weapon into a public bar. The gentleman who held Jason down, thinking they were doing the right thing, they did the wrong thing, but they were never held accountable in any way, shape, or fashion either. And the way it was presented to his family was that had they gone to trial, that the suspects, those that would have been arrested for his wrongful death, would have been able to use the Florida Stand Your Ground law. So they felt that because that was such a strong lean that they would be using that, they chose not to charge them. I struggle with this, and I struggle with the same exact reasoning was used for Dishaun. So my struggle with this is, and I'm going to try to get in touch with a local lawyer and see if when we do our next live show on Dishaun, as we piece together what happened to him and what could be done for justice for him now, even though we're 2 years out from his death, a little over 2 years out, what could be done to get some type of justice for him so this doesn't happen again. I'd like to get a lawyer to come on with us, because I would like a lawyer to help me understand as far as I understand, and I was told this by the Volusia County Sheriff when I went for a meeting there, that the police don't determine if something's Florida Stand Your Ground law. That's up to an attorney to read and interpret the law, the Florida Stand Your Ground law, and then decide if they can apply that to their client who has been charged and is going to trial. So why the police in Dishaun's case, again, I believe, making statements about the Florida Stand Your Ground law, that's not the police job. Their job is to go to the scene, deal with the case as it's happening, make any arrests they have to make, collect evidence, secure the scene, bring in CSI if they need to, search the scene for any evidence, anything left that might help them with the case, interview witnesses, and then build a case against someone if there is a case to be built, and write their police reports. Then all that gets turned over to the district attorney. And then the district attorney decides if there is enough of a case, is there enough evidence, is there enough probable cause, did the police have enough, did they do enough of a good job, so that then that person could be arrested and charged and then go to trial, or be offered, have a preliminary hearing where they have the option to plead guilty, not guilty. They have the option for a plea hearing if they want to plead out, or if they want it to go to a jury trial, their lawyers have that right. That's where the lawyer then looks at the Florida Stand Your Ground law and any other state that has a Stand Your Ground law and determines, was that situation, does it suit this law? Can this law be applied to this situation? It's not it's really it's not the DA's job to decide in advance, oh, well, the lawyer's going to use the Florida Stand Your Ground law, so we might as well not even arrest this person. That's the gist of what I'm getting from the police with both Jason Veach's case and Dishaun Hudson's case. And that just doesn't make any sense to me. So I would really love to find a lawyer here locally that I can bring in, either from Orlando, Jacksonville, my area over here, Daytona Beach area, and hopefully have that person come on with us and help us understand more about this Florida Stand Your Ground law. Because in any other state where there is no such thing, there was no weapon that was found on Dishaun. Is that correct, on his person?
Yeah, absolutely. And witnesses were contradicting. They say they thought they saw a gun. The people were the friends of who I call the perpetrators, who was never arrested. They were in a group, like a little party as well. And witnesses said that he was drinking as well, the perpetrator. And he had a weapon in a bar. So.
Right. And so that and we're going to pull up the Florida Stand Your Ground law here in a minute, and I'm going to read it off to everybody. That in and of itself should basically just cancel that right out. Because if they're carrying concealed in a bar, most places won't allow that. They even have signs up that say no weapons on these grounds. And he was drinking. So again, that's exactly what was going on with the Jason Veach case. There was alcohol involved, and I consider a hatchet a weapon. I don't know about you, but if someone comes running into a bar with intention, like one of the witnesses said, wheeling a hatchet above their head because another man is being loud and obnoxious and shouting at the bartender, I consider the person with the hatchet now the person that I need to be concerned about. That is the actual perpetrator in that. I consider the person who shot Dishaun Hudson 14 times in an Applebee's where others could have been injured. I consider that person now a dangerous person. And so I'm very confused by both these cases. They happened literally within an hour and a half of each other, very close proximity, date, time as well. And I'm just very upset and confused by this use of the Florida Stand Your Ground law in both of these incidents and deaths of two young men who had their whole lives ahead of them, who were both fathers. And Jason was married, and Dishaun was not at the time, but he had family, he had other friends. This is just a travesty. And like I said here, how is it possible that you have been shot 14 times on surveillance in front of witnesses and there's no charges whatsoever? Now, I'm not saying that I need this person to go to jail for eternity for the rest of their life. If indeed they did feel threatened by Dishaun, if they did believe he had a weapon and they felt they were protecting the people in the Applebee's and this was just a horrible mistake, then that's manslaughter. But that's still manslaughter. You're still responsible for your actions when you carry a weapon. When you discharge a weapon, you are responsible for your actions. And so I don't like the Florida Stand Your Ground law as it reads now. It's not tight enough, in my opinion. Governor Scott, when he was governor before DeSantis, he loosened this law. This law was a lot tighter, where people could kind of understand it and be okay with it, but he loosened it, which means that it's almost like a free for all now. Like if you decide to shoot someone or kill someone, and if you can somehow come up with a reason that you feel threatened, even though you may not have, if you can convince the police that you did, then you're not going to jail. There is no consequences for your actions, even though you're not the police. You're not a sworn police officer. This isn't the Wild West where we can take matters into our own hands. This is still the way the law is written in our country, is we need to call the police in to take care of situations where there's danger. Now, defense is a different thing. If you have to save your own life, or if you're actually saving someone else's life and you can claim self-defense, then there has to be witnesses. There has to be reasons for that. The Florida Stand Your Ground law is not the same as self-defense. It's way, way broader. It allows way too much room for error, in my humble opinion. And I think that's what's happened here with this case with Dishaun, where nobody is having any type of penalties for him no longer being on this planet. He lost his life over a mistake, over someone thought he had a weapon and he didn't. Someone thought he was going to be dangerous in the Applebee's, but he wasn't. And so you can't stop and think after you've done it. And maybe if he had only shot him once, maybe he could have survived. Maybe it wouldn't have been a deadly shot. Maybe it would have ended up somewhere in his body where he could have been saved. But when you shoot someone 14 times, there's just it's very rare. Recently, one of the senators in Minnesota was shot, I believe, 13 times. And by a miracle, they lived. They went through multiple surgeries. But it's very, very rare to survive a shooting of that magnitude, of being shot that many times. So it's just really horrific. So let me read to you guys what I have up here on the screen. Give me a second. I have to pull it up where I can see it a little bit. I can't see it on the screen. I don't expect you guys to. Let me go to that, because I just want to read you this statement here. So, and then Brittany, knowing what you know, having talked to his friend that was there, you can tell me what they got wrong in this. So what was told to the police was that Dishaun had been seated at an outside patio table with a group of people. And at some point, he walked into the parking lot where he got into an argument with a male and a female. As the male and the female left in a vehicle, Hudson pulled out a handgun and fired 3 shots into the air. After hearing the shot, several patrons who were seated outside went inside the restaurant for safety, and some ran out the back door through the kitchen. Hudson walked around to the side door where a female friend of his tried to convince him to leave before the police arrived. Hudson did not leave, and he went inside the restaurant through the side door. A female who was with Hudson this is a repeat, but basically tried to get him to leave. He didn't want to leave, so he went in the restaurant. Then there was a verbal altercation occurred where the witnesses said that he reached into his pants, and a male patron with a concealed weapon permit who was inside the restaurant shot Hudson, who then died at the scene. Now, the male patron was identified. He cooperated with investigators. He did not leave the scene. He in the video that we watched last time, he put the gun down, and that there's an ongoing investigation. So that was the original statement that came out. Now let's pick that apart. What, according to what you know, based on his friend, were they seated outside at a patio table?
I do not know the exact details of when they were outside. There is no surveillance video footage of the outside. I do know that according to, and anything I know is coming from police statements. I was not there.
Right.
I just knew this person. I found out on the 8th, the day after what happened, and I started researching from there and getting the reports. But I do know that according to witness statements, it was dark outside. It was right before closing, early in the morning. There was a car that sped off who was in an argument with somebody, possibly the victim. I don't know, but I don't remember that part. But I do know, which I can look at again. But there was a car that sped off who could have had the gun. I know that my friend, the victim, was unarmed, and the statements did in the police report. They did say that they thought they saw a gun, but they couldn't actually. When questioned, one of them was questioned which hand did the gun hold, and they couldn't identify that. And they later said that they thought it was him, but they weren't sure. There's several, and those people that gave the statements were friends with the perpetrator.
Okay. So for the most part, it sounds like there was a mistake made where they thought Dishaun was the one that fired the gun 3 times in the air, but it may have been the people in the car that sped off and left the scene.
It was never proven that who had a gun, and I don't even think they did gunshot residue on the victim's hands, which I had actually even asked, because if they're trying to say it's self-defense and he shot a gun, right, can you please prove to me that he shot the gun? They should have, to me, I'm not a professional, but I would think that they would do gunshot residue on his hands too.
Well, absolutely. I mean, if they're trying to say that there's no charges being filed because this was a stand your ground, because this person felt threatened, because they actually saw Dishaun shoot a gun into the air 3 times in the parking lot, then prove it. Prove to me by either a surveillance or witnesses or gun residue on Dishaun's person. And where's the gun? Because who's got the gun then? Are you, and who sped out of the parking lot? Did you ever find out who that was? Did you interview them? Because they're obviously key witnesses. So that those are, difficulties and situations that we have to look into and find out if any of that happened by reading through as many of the police reports that you have and that we can get our hands on. Now, what I understood too is that when Hudson came into the restaurant, he basically was shouting, did someone call the police on me? Why did you call the police on me? He wasn't actually threatening to hurt anybody. He was asking questions. And then,
couple statements, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. A couple statements say he wasn't shouting. One woman, I forgot, LaFonda, she said, I think she was a cook there, she said he was quiet. Different statements say different things. So a lot of it doesn't make sense. And a couple witnesses, this actually started, I think at Gator's Dockside Restaurant and Bar, which is in the police report. A knife was pulled on him by a couple people who were, according to this police statements, followed behind the victim and his small group of people. And they were also at Applebee's where the murder occurred. And by research I did, they are friends with who I call the perpetrator.
Yes, and you've explained that to me, and that's a concern, and that makes it very clear then that this was not just a matter of a man walking into Applebee's and shouting at people and then putting his hands in his pockets to the point where the perpetrator believed he was a threat to anyone. This started at another location.
And they pulled a knife on him because he flirted with a girl, is what the police report said. That's why a knife was pulled on him. So what girl, I'm not exactly sure. I think it said a bartender there. He had flirted with her is all. He walked in, it was his birthday, he was happy, and a knife was pulled on him there. So I haven't been able to obtain a police report or anything from that, but that should have been checked out.
Yeah, well, let's make a note of that, because we're going to want to get that. So let's make a note to request. I'm writing a note. Request police report from. Thank you. Tell me the name of the bar again.
Gator's Dockside and Bar, which I haven't been there. I've only ever been there because I was taken to court by the perpetrator for speaking of his name, but or posting his picture. But he. Or according to the research I did, is not far from Applebee's. It was a short little walking distance because the police report said a couple people followed behind who were at that location that went to Applebee's.
All right. I'll get a map layout of how far of where that's located. But this case is technically closed, so there should be no problem requesting a police report from the dockside if there was one ever made.
There were two different, I don't know, I can't remember I need to find out the name of the other police department that responded from the next town, because it might have been like on the borderline of both towns, but this is the department that took the case in
Right.
Lady Lake. But I need to find out the other department and see if they can provide anything further on that too.
Right, exactly. All right. So let me pop up here to now I've been doing searches the last couple days, seeing if anybody's made any comments about this case, if there's been anything in the media whatsoever about this case, but it appears to just be closed. I think the media has forgotten about it, I hate to say. This was dated at the end of March of 2023. And when I go into Google, there's just very sparing articles, very sparing coverage on this. It was covered extensively when it first happened. And then this was one of the last coverages that I could find. I mean, I'll keep looking. This is trigger alert. I'm sorry. This is when they were bringing him out of the Applebee's. So again, this is the same narrative, only almost 30 days later. He had been seated at an outside patio table with a group of people. At some point, he walked into the parking lot, got into an argument with the male and female. I'm going to presume that it's either the male and female that was in this vehicle, or it was the male and female that had followed him there from the other bar where they had gotten in that fight. So I'm interested in digging into the witness statements now at this point to see who was stating that Hudson pulled out a handgun and fired 3 shots in the air. Who saw him do that? So we need to dig into the police reports and find out who is saying this. Is it the perpetrator and his friends that are saying this? Or
it was, according to what I read in the police reports, the statements again were contradicting. They said they thought they saw a gun when asked. I can't remember exactly which one they asked. There were several of them, but one of them was asked, it was a male, about which hand held the gun. If they saw a gun, which hand, they couldn't identify. And then they later said that they thought they saw it, but they actually said they didn't actually see a gun at that point.
Okay. And here's my problem with this. Hang on, I'm going to share my screen for a second. I have a problem with the media that put out their stories on Dishaun's death, because they should be saying allegedly. They should not be saying point blank. At some point, he walked out into the parking lot where he got in. He pulled a gun and fired 3 shots. They should be qualifying that was some witnesses stated that Hudson pulled out a gun, or allegedly, according to witnesses. So for them just to make these point blank statements like this is really poor journalism, and it's not a good look at all, a disservice to Dishaun, and he has the right to be considered innocent until proven guilty if he did or did not shoot this gun. So that's been a concern to me from the beginning when we first met, and I started looking through all of the media coverage on his case. So again, trigger alert. Sorry, this is where I have to scroll down past where they brought him out. So again, this article is saying, once inside the restaurant, Hudson demanded to know who called the police on him. When he reached into his pants, a male patron with a concealed weapon permit shot the victim. The male patron, 27-year-old Drew Chandler Meno of Leedsburg, told the police he was in fear of his life and for the lives of others with him. Hudson died at the scene. Now, again, how could you be in fear of your life that quickly? According to the other witnesses that I read in the police reports that you provided me, and thank you for those, that he had actually verbalized, I'm going to empty out my pockets.
He was questioned immediately, according to the police statements. He was questioned by Corey Rittner, who after research I did, he was personal friends with, who I call the perpetrator, Drew Chandler Mano. They were questioned. Dishaun, the victim, was questioned immediately about having a weapon. As soon as a group of people were called into the restaurant for last drink call, which he was, there was different surveillance video footages that show different angles of what happened. It
Right.
showed he was outside smiling and laughing, like one of the witnesses said. He was
Mhm.
happy. He was a happy person all the time, and you can see him smiling, laughing outside of the front door. A group of people were called into the restaurant right there for last drink call, and then he was questioned immediately about whatever they said. I don't know how they said it, but they questioned him about thinking he had a gun. And I'm sure he said, no, I don't, however he said it, I don't know. But he reached into his pockets, and that's when he was shot 14 times. And the statements say because the gun ran out of bullets. So who knows, he might have kept shooting.
Yeah, it's just, it doesn't make any sense. It's pardon the pun, but it's overkill. Like, I mean, if he was afraid for his life, and if this is someone who has a carry permit, that means they've had to go take classes on safety, handgun safety, firearm safety. That doesn't make me feel very safe that someone who has a permit to carry a gun is going to be that trigger happy with someone that they're not even sure is a threat, and to continue to fire that many times. What kind of weapon did he have?
And witnesses told me that the perpetrator, sorry to interrupt you, the perpetrator was drinking, and his girlfriend is the bartender there. And the witnesses also told me that recently that there was a house party, and he pulled a gun on his girlfriend, which is the bartender. And I guess he's not allowed to go into Applebee's and all that. I don't know, but.
Well, I'll look into some of this. This is concerning to me too. Like I said, the way that they're covering this in the media, Hudson's handgun was recovered. You don't know that that was his handgun. You don't even know he had a handgun, and you don't know that it was his at all. So then they're saying the 3 spent shell casings were recovered in the parking lot. Mano was then released from the scene, and the case is being reviewed. So this was at the end of the month of March. That's the last media. And this was the Village News in the Villages. So I guess that shouldn't surprise me that, that we're not talking about the most experienced journalists out here, but they certainly should know better than to put out something as fact that they don't have any way of knowing as that's fact, because the case was still under investigation. So that's concerning to me. I'm not never happy when I see journalists not using the words allegedly or witness statements say, we don't know for sure. That what they could have said is, we don't know for sure if he had a gun. We don't know for sure if it was his. So last time when we were together, I was going over this Lady Lake Police Department report, and I was very impressed. I was very impressed at how well the report was written. Very easy to understand, all the names, dates of birth, everything we need about the witnesses is all organized, easy to see how many there actually were, all the evidence. I mean, this is a really well-written police report. And then the actual narrative section, I mean, this police report is over 45 pages long, I think. The actual narrative section that we got to last week, where we were describing what you and I just described, we actually read word for word when we were together last month. I mean, not last week. And there was many supplements to this report. And we were, oh, hello, Stephanie Jewell. Nice to see you. Thanks for being here with us.
Hi, Stephanie.
I was explaining this to everybody last night, that all police officers are required to, the police officers that was it was that police officer's call, and then there's backups. The main officer whose case that is has to write a police report, and then all the other officers have to write supplements, and then any other information the police garner after that original police report is submitted, then they have to write supplements. And that was something we were discussing last night again, that wasn't done appropriately in the Karen Reed case, and in the case of Anna Walsh. She was, we believe, unalived by her husband in I think she was unalived in New York, I believe, and they've never found her, and the police did not do their police reports in a timely manner. And then the other case that we were watching on Friday Night Live, same exact thing, same group of police officers, Massachusetts State Police, do not seem to know what writing a timely police report means. And that's just completely standard protocol at all police departments, that you write your police report, you get it turned in, the supervisors have to approve it, and then any other information that comes after becomes a supplement. And that's what they have here, the Lady Lake. They have a lot of supplements because they did a lot of investigating, apparently. So I'm trying to go back now. I want to catch up to where we were last time, as we were kind of going through this and trying to figure out who were the witnesses. Like you said, let's be clear on that. So
a couple of them work at nearby restaurants too. I can't think of the restaurant close by at the second. Maybe Stephanie knows. I can't see the chat, but um, David, I forget, Lincoln maybe. David Lincoln was one of them. He works at a nearby restaurant. He was the one seated in the video right there, above at the table.
Oh, I see. Yeah. I'm just trying to go back to my spot where we left off a month ago. We had gotten into the first few pages of, they had, let me just review this for those of you that are new to this case. I'll just read this, kind of paraphrase it. So the police were called, the dispatch received calls, multiple calls about a shooting, and that the initial subject, that a gun had been fired approximately 3 shots. So that was the original call that went out, is that there was a shooting, a black male. The initial subject from a dispatch call pulled a gun and fired off approximately 3 shots. While Lake County Dispatch advised they could hear multiple gunshots going off in the background and was advised someone was shot. So that would have been probably after the perpetrator
I did hear that call. I don't know if you have that, but if not, I can send that. I did get that recently.
Oh yeah, I'd like to hear that one as well. So Lake County Dispatch was advised the black male came back into the business and pulled out his weapon again, which we know he didn't do because he didn't have a weapon.
Yeah, so one of them said they actually saw a weapon, and that's not true. And I have because I have the surveillance video to show that part.
Right,
on the inside.
And also there was no weapon found when they took him to the hospital. So there was no weapon with him in the Applebee's. Yep. So where would that weapon have gone if he's the one who shot the 3 shots off in the parking lot and walked directly into the Applebee's and got shot himself? So where did that weapon go? Where did it go? Right. So
I do know the car that sped off. It could have had it. I don't know. I don't know, but
well, if
he was unarmed.
If the car that sped off would have had it, then they would have been the ones doing the shooting.
Yeah, and the witnesses said they don't know who actually had the gun because it was dark outside, and they thought it was the Dishaun. But
so I'm just trying to go back to I'm trying to look for some supplements now that would have come after when they started doing. These are all the night of. I'm trying to get to. Okay, so here we go. Let's take a look at this one. This was written on 3/16. So this one's stating that I first conducted a preliminary survey of the scene. After observing the scene, I conducted an initial interview with the manager of the restaurant. And I'm not just going to use names for now. We don't need them. The manager knew the shooter's name was Drew. Both employees stated the shooter is the boyfriend of the bartender that was working. Next, I spoke with the GM of Applebee's, who wasn't able to provide any information of evidentiary value. The GM advised he wasn't able to provide me any more information. He was not at the scene. However, blah, blah, blah. That's just nothing we need to know. LaFonda Rowe, who you had just spoken about, stated she came outside and gathered the customers' empty glasses to bring inside. She advised that is when she heard about 7 to 8 gunshots. She advised everyone to come inside. Subject believed was firing the gun. He came, the black male dressed in all white came inside and had his hands in his pockets. Rowe stated everyone thought he had a gun. LaFonda Rowe stated the subject pulled a phone out of his pocket, and that is when the shooter shot him.
Yeah, he was questioned immediately about thinking but it wasn't him that had a gun, and I personally think they knew that. But
if she was close enough to see that it was a phone, then the shooter was obviously close enough as well. That should have been the pause moment where he would have saw, oh, that's a phone, and this would have never happened. So she said he was quiet, as you stated. She believed that he fired 3 shots and repeated, was standing right there. I spoke to Jerry. He advised he was locking the doors. So nobody saw a gun. She says they thought he might have had a gun, but then she saw that when he went in his pocket, he pulled out a phone, and she actually saw it, and then he was shot. So that, to me, right then and there, shows that the person with the gun, with the carry concealed permit, was too quick to react. If you're going to be carrying a gun, then you are also the one that has to be extra cautious with what you do with that gun. Even if you're afraid that someone might hurt you, you still can't just start shooting people.
Yep. Yeah, the perpetrator was drinking, according to witness statements that I have.
I'm looking through now for the supplements that would tell me what they found
And
out
he's had
about.
multiple DUI charges too. Not that, I don't know if that matters, but he obviously has a problem with alcohol. So to me, it matters.
Yeah, that's a concern. If you're going to give someone a permit to carry a gun and they have alcohol behavior issues, I think so. Yeah, I think that's a problem. I'm just looking through here to see if we have any follow-up.
Detective Duryea, he closed everything pretty quick. He said due to the standard ground law, which I think needs to be revised.
Correct. I mean, and that's the problem that we have, is that if you can make it tighter where people can still protect themselves if they're in an emergent situation and they have to, and they have no choice, and it's either them or the person, that's a totally different story, how you look at that. But when you don't know for sure if a person has a gun, you really can't be making these kind of decisions. And yes, it's scary in the world, but still, guys, the majority of people that are unalived in our universe are unalived by someone they know. These random acts of violence are far and few between. Now, granted, we saw one just a couple days ago with this horrific murder of the two M-words, sorry, YouTube, unaliving of the mom and the dad. Did you see that in the news? The mom and the dad that were unalived in the park in Arkansas?
Oh, that's so sad. I haven't. There's so many things on the news, but there's a whole family I just saw that happened to it. Everyone but the baby, I think.
Correct. That just happened yesterday or that happened at least 3 or 4 days ago. They've been still, I think, looking for that. But the person in the park, he followed this young couple and their two daughters into this park in Arizona. Arkansas, sorry. And they were unalived by this person. And we still don't know his motive. Now, people have been speculating that he might have been trying to kidnap the children, and that the parents fought him off and probably told their children to run, and the children ran and they got to safety. And then this person fled. And then by a lot of witnesses reports and other people that were in the park, they were able to identify him and make an arrest of him. It was either early this morning or yesterday. Now, I can't remember when they actually arrested him, but there's so much like scariness going on in the world that it can happen. You can be attacked by someone you don't know, but 85% of women are unalived by someone they know. And the same goes for men. It's a high number. Men that are unalived are also unalived by someone that they know, either a casual acquaintance, or they get in like a bar fight with people that they know casually, and someone ends up pulling a weapon or stabbing or a gun. So this kind of random, Dishaun wasn't really that level of a threat. So it's still my opinion from what I know so far, and there's a lot more police reports that I still have to read and go through. And what I'm going to do is finish reading these this week, and I'll make a synopsis for us. So the next time that we live together, I'll just have a synopsis of everything that they presented in a police report. And that'll make it easier for everybody to understand what, these police reports are long and detailed. And, but it's just, something has to be done with the Florida Stand Your Ground law. Since I've lived here, I have read 10 cases where the families don't feel it was justified, and their loved one was either having a mental health situation or there was alcohol involved. People were drinking and they got in a bar fight. These things can happen when there's alcohol involved. Bar fights are not uncommon. And if we start allowing people just to shoot each other up during bar fights, or when they're having a family altercation because for a moment they feel afraid of that person and it might not be a true self-defense situation, then we have a problem. We have a big problem. And so if I've only learned of 10 since I've been back down in Florida, which is only almost 5 years, how many could I dig up if I took the time? it's scary to me. And when we were covering Jason Veach's case, that case has gone into some form of litigation now, so we're not live streaming about Jason right now, but we're still advocating for him in our hearts. I met another woman whose boyfriend was unalived, and same exact thing. There was some type of a disagreement with the neighbors, and he came onto the neighbor's property, and the neighbor came out with a shotgun and said, "Get off my property right now." And he was retreating, and the neighbor completely lost his temper, lost his mind, and shot him. And so these types of things, people have to be held accountable. You can't be, if you want the supreme privilege of carrying concealed, if that's what you want in our country, then you have the supreme privilege of not going overboard and making very sure what you're doing with that concealed carried weapon.
I had a 15-year-old neighbor. He was murdered a few years ago. His name was Corey. He was shot in the back. He was hanging out at a Boys and Girls Club not far from here, and a guy he knew just shot him in the back several times while he was running away. And he just got, I think, probation or something. I don't even know. It's crazy.
Yeah, this last month in our country, with all the violence that's been going on, it's just been eerie and so scary. And so many of them are domestic violence situations. And
yeah, I just now saw that comment. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just put this up for you from Stephanie. She said he pulled his phone out of his pocket when he walked in it to the door. He was
he was just on his phone. He was texting someone.
So it should have been clear. It wasn't that dark. It was not.
If he was aggressive or something like that, then maybe, I think maybe self-defense could be claimed. I might fear of my life if someone is aggressive or lunging at me or threatening, but there's different surveillance videos, they show that he was not threatening. I mean, he was not aggressive.
Right, exactly. And like I said, there's always going to be, the justification for self-defense, because we have to have that if someone's trying to harm us. Now, just another example, there was a case a few years ago, and I'm trying to remember what state this was in. Was it in Oklahoma? Hang on a second. I made a note of it so I could ask you if you knew about this one. A father found out that this man who they got a restraining order against, who had been trying to groom his daughter, a 67-year-old man had been trying to groom a 14-year-old girl and kind of get her to leave with him and go with him away from her family. And the family found out, and they got a court order against him, and he was actually arrested, and he was out on bail, and he continued to violate the court order and continued to try to see this girl. And the father caught him in a vehicle with this man, caught his daughter, and there was an altercation, and then he shot him. So he is now he was arrested and charged with first degree homicide for killing this man who had R-worded his 14-year-old daughter and who was still trying to manipulate and groom her. And that case has been kind of in limbo now, and it was back out in the media because I believe he's going to trial soon. So again, these are very difficult situations because, yes, somebody died, and he shouldn't take it into his own hands. He should have called the police. But I think at that point, his fear and concern was that this man was going to speed off with his daughter. And if she's the only witness that could go to his trial, to where he was going to be standing trial for R-wording her, he could have hurt her. He could have hurt her and then offed himself because he knew he was going to trial soon. Or he could have just sped off with her and tried to disappear with her. So I think this father felt he had no choice, that he was acting in self-defense of his 14-year-old daughter. So I'm surprised in a way that this is going to trial. Melanie Little was covering it the other day on her LawTube channel. So I'll follow up on that and kind of give you guys updates on that as that goes forward. That's something where in this case, we don't want to cheer that someone died, because we want them to go to trial and get their punishment and be served their punishment. But if this was truly a situation where, like I said, he could have sped off with this man's daughter, then he was acting in self-defense of his daughter and of himself. So that kind of re-entered the media. The disappearance of Amy Bradley re-entered the media. Her brother's been doing interviews again. Now you might be too young to remember this, but she disappeared.
I just recently learned about her. I saw the Netflix documentary. Because I saw it on TikTok.
Right. And I spoke on it on Friday too, during our Friday Night Lives episode. And I saw you make a comment on my Facebook page. That's really eerie and scary to think, but there
I
is
pray she's still alive. At least I don't know, but
it's
I hope she's
possible, like
able to return.
if they knew that the people who took her, if she did get put into trafficking, a situation where she was working in brothels, it almost sounds like they were, every time that any kind of a lead happened, they found out and they moved her. And it's just it's scary to me to think that she would still be alive and having lived under these horrible circumstances.
If she had kids, I'm sad for what she went through, but if she had kids and maybe it's different. If she's threatened, I mean, that's still horrible. That's really bad. That's horrible. But if I don't have kids, I could only imagine. But if I had kids and in some kind of situation like that, and they were threatened once, I mean, but she had probably been mentally brainwashed by this point. I don't know. I pray she's alive. I don't know.
It's very possible. I mean, when someone's been held, for a long period of time and in a kidnap situation, you kind of can become brainwashed by your captors, and you get used to your new normal. I know that sounds horrible, but you're in like survival mode. So you're just trying to survive every day. And maybe somewhere in the back of your mind, you're hoping you'll be rescued, but you're also dealing with, this is what I'm dealing with now. This is my new normal. How do I survive this every day? And I think some of them just come to accept their plight and they just deal with it one day at a time. It's horrible. It's awful. Some of the people that have been held that were found 15, 10, 5 years later, it's hard to even fathom that there's this many evil people in the world. And it's hard.
So scary.
It's one of the toughest things about following true crime and being an advocate for victims of homicides is that every day that we're planning on when are we going to advocate for them again, or we're looking up to try to find new evidence to help the families. We're living this in our own brains, and it becomes very scary. Like I've had some weird nightmares lately involving Sarah. I dreamt that
she stays on my mind every second. I can't even hardly sleep right now. I pray she's found, or I mean, I pray that she can be reunited some kind of way. And that's so sad what's going on with that.
I want to say that Stephanie says to us that D was 6'4", very tall man. He leaned over to empty his pockets when Drew opened fire on him. Exactly. And we saw that when we watched the surveillance, and when we watched the surveillance again, it's a big trigger alert to see someone just shot down like that in cold blood. But we may show that again the next time we live about this. As I get deeper into these police reports, I'm going to build you guys an outline, and we'll because I'm trying to build something that would be presentable for me to ask for. And this was something I was going to ask your permission as the family, ask the friends and you, and if you want to ask the family. But I'd like to try to get a meeting with the Lady Lake Police.
That would be amazing. That would be more than amazing. I would appreciate it so much. Well, I'm sure the family would.
And before I get this meeting, I want to have this outline. So, because I'm not going to go in there and try to read, 55 pages of police reports with them. I want to have an outline of exactly what I want to ask them and why, and have maybe certain sections of the police report highlighted, like, how did you rule this out? Or how did you determine whose gun it was? And which witness said they saw the gun? Things like that. So I'm going to come up with kind of a timeline question, situation that I would, if they'll give me the meeting. Now, so far, I've been very blessed with the fact that I am a retired police officer. And when I called Marion County Sheriffs, Volusia County Sheriffs for Sarah and for Jason, they did allow me to come along. I was able to go with Kara to one of the meetings and ask some questions. And then I was able to ask questions myself in phone meetings with two detectives and two sergeants at the Marion County. So they've been very willing, and when I call to ask. So I'm kind of hoping that if I call Lady Lake and say, hey, I'm retired police, I'm a social worker, I'm advocating for Dishaun, we're not thinking that this is all going to change, but we'd like some closure for the family. We'd like more answers and more explanation as to why you were so convinced that this is and was a Florida Stand Your Ground, why you believe that this young man's lawyers could have used this law and applied it to his actions that night. I think even if we can't get Dishaun's case reopened, or we can't get that level of justice for him, but at least if we can get more answers than what you and Stephanie and the family have gotten so far, that would be meaningful to me.
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely.
So,
I appreciate your help so much. Because again,
well,
the only reason he went in his pockets too, because I'm just seeing that comment up there. I just want to clarify that in the police report, it did state that he was questioned about having a gun. So that is the only reason. So if they're trying to use that as a self-defense, too, that, oh, he went in his pockets to shoot me. But that's not, I mean, he was questioned about, so he was just trying to prove his innocence at that point. So I just wanted to make sure I clarify that again.
right, exactly. And that's what he's going to do, because he doesn't want to get arrested and go to jail for this. If he may have convinced himself that he felt threatened and that he felt afraid. But again, when you determine that you're going to carry concealed for whatever reason you feel you need to do that in this world, when, again, I've explained this a lot on my live shows, 80 to 85% of the time, you're going to be unalived by someone you know. So it's going to be a family squabble, a family argument, a husband, a wife situation, a domestic violence situation. It's not going to be just some random dude that you've met at a bar. It's just a very low probability. So if you're going to decide to carry concealed because you have this fear that you're going to need to defend yourself or others out there in the world, like I said, you have this high level of responsibility that you do not take that gun out of its holster. And the police are trained with that high level of responsibility. They have to follow a threat continuum. They have to start out with their pepper spray. They have to, unless there is an imminent danger or they see a weapon that's being either pointed at someone else or pointed at them, then they can get out their firearm. But the police are held to a high standard. So how are we not, with this Florida Stand Your Ground law, holding citizens to a high standard?
He had a gun in the bar, Drew did.
Right, and that's not legal in Florida, is it? As far as I know. I mean, in other states,
as far as I know, I'm not exactly sure, but I don't think it is.
Everything I think that shouldn't be legal in Florida I've been told it's legal in Florida by Volusia County. So I'm never shocked by what I learn here in the wild west of Florida. I really am not. So, but there's got to be more accountability for people that are choosing to carry concealed. I don't love it. I'm not going to lie to you. I don't love it that some person could take my actions wrong, and because they're carrying concealed and I'm not, I'm dead. And that to me is very, very scary. And that scares me more than running into some random person who might want to kill me, which is, again, very, very rare. I have a much higher chance of leaving this earth by a boyfriend, an ex-boyfriend, an ex-husband, or a current boyfriend than any stranger ever that I will ever meet. So even as a retired police officer, I've never felt the need to carry concealed.
Not everybody is mentally well to do such. Not everybody can hold a gun. And I personally feel that, I mean, self-defense, if someone is going to shoot me and I see a gun, for sure, and it's there and it's on surveillance video, to me, that'd be self-defense. But I mean, until it's not that.
But the mentality of carrying concealed is you're walking around thinking that someone's going to try to kill you every day. I don't want to live my life like that. I don't know about you guys, but first of all, the odds of that happening are very astronomical. And then even having a gun on you is not necessarily going to save your life. Many people have still died in home invasions, even though they had a gun in their bed nightstand or a gun under their bed or wherever they kept it. So there's no evidence. There's no evidence, research or evidence that leads us to believe that carrying concealed or having a gun in your home saves you from any of these rare crimes that happen. The majority of homicides in our country are by people that you know. They are not by strangers. So, okay, so here's my job. My assignment, Brittany, is I'm going to finish up these police reports in the next week or two.
God bless you. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're so welcome, my dear, and you're so welcome, Stephanie, and thank you for being here, Stephanie. I'm going to make this timeline for you all, and then what we'll do is we'll live again, let's say in 2 weeks. We'll have a live show again on Thursday night in 2 weeks. I'll present to you everything I've figured out. I'll show you my proof of what I want to show. In the meantime, in between then and now, I will call and request this meeting. Now, Brittany, would you want to come to this meeting if I am able to?
I would love to. I don't have a car, as I think I might have mentioned, but if I can pay you gas money.
Oh, just please, no, that's not an issue.
Mhm.
So let's make that our next step. Let me go through the rest of these police reports. Let me make my timeline. Let me call and request this meeting as a volunteer, as an advocate for Dishaun and as former police officer, social worker, and see what they'll do. See if they'll allow me to have a meeting, and then I'll let you know, and then we'll report all this on our live show in 2 weeks. How does that sound to you,
Thank
Stephanie?
you. I'm so appreciative.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So if you want to hang with me a minute, I'm just going to give a few updates on some of the other victims and their
I
families
would
that
love
were
to
advocating
hear.
for. Great. I appreciate it. And any thoughts you or Stephanie have on them would be helpful to me as well. So let me just pull back up. Let me end my screen here on this one. There we go. And rest in peace, Dishaun. We're incredibly sorry and sad for your family, for your son and your friends, that this is what happened to you. This is not fair. It's not right. And we're just so sorry. And we hope you're resting in peace. So let me just give you all a little update since we have the time. So last night, those of you that were with me, I did a new live stream on Where is Sarah Ebersol? And one of Sarah's soldiers, Karen, was kind enough to join me. Karen has been volunteering with Michelle over in the Ocala area now for over 2 years. Karen found out about Sarah's disappearance shortly after when Michelle started being so active on her Facebook page. And she's been very involved in the standouts that they've had over in Ocala for justice for Sarah, for this case. So if you have the time, I know you're all. What'd you say, dear?
Michelle is incredible. So are you. Michelle and everyone helping her is just, it's so amazing.
Yeah, Michelle is an amazing sister, and she is not going to give up on finding her sister. And however that looks, it's scary and horrible to say that she could be unalived, and we're talking about a recovery of her body, or she could have been trafficked, and we have to keep searching because she may still be out there, and she may be being forced into this type of slavery, and that hurts my soul just as much as if she was unalived. So it's a bad situation, no matter how you look at it. Sarah's not in a good place right now, whatever that is, unless she's in heaven, because then she's in a better place than all of us, for those of you that are religious. But we want to know where Sarah is and what happened to her. And the group of volunteers over in Ocala and Reddick area are not going to quit. I made a post today. I said, attention to whoever harmed Sarah, unalived her, disposed of her body, put her into trafficking, whoever you are, we're not going to quit. We're not going to give up looking for her. And I was very snarky today because I'm mad about this case. I'm mad that the police haven't figured out. There were 5 people that saw her that night. 3 of them aren't here to tell me what's going on. And that's very frustrating to me. Well, I should say that there'd be a total of 6 then if we count Sarah herself. But 2 of them are gone, unalived by drug overdoses, we've been made to believe. And 3 of them are alive. Sarah's missing. So that's your circle. And then her ex-boyfriend, the father of her beautiful child, Cora, has always been a concern for me, but we don't have any evidence. We just have circumstantial evidence that would point in his direction. We have past behavior that points in his direction, but it's a very frustrating missing situation for Sarah and her family and for her sister, Michelle. So we'll keep advocating for her. We'll continue to bring you updates as we have them. I might consider trying to get another meeting over there as well to see if they can give me any information as to where this case is going. I don't really understand why, if they're struggling this much, they're not turning it over to Florida Department of Law. They can do that if they just can't work a case anymore. If they've worked it till their last, hope, then they can ask for outside help. So I'm just really confused why that hasn't happened yet. So we will continue to update on Sarah. And if you're interested in what we talked about last night, Karen and I, you can go grab it on the replay in the live section under our channel. We also have a missing mother and her son, Erica Brooks, and her son, Camarcus Brooks. They have also been missing for a little over 2 years now, and there's no movement on their case. And they're also from this area. They're from Dunellen, which is also in that area. They're 1 county over from Marion, and they literally disappeared into thin air. And how does this happen, Brittany and Stephanie? How do people disappear into thin air? it doesn't make any sense to me. And so I haven't reached out to this family yet. I was just given this family's information by another lady that I met whose daughter Cody was unalived. Her mother believes by her boyfriend, even though the police are blaming it on a drug overdose, but there was nothing in her autopsy to indicate that. So that's another case that we've been just getting to know Cody and her mom, and that's in Marion County as well. So Marion County is scaring me. They're scaring me with the number of missing persons cases they have. And I think I'm on the tip of the iceberg with how many unsolved missing cases. I'm looking into that as well on the side. So that is that's that with all we know very little. There's no suspects. The case is just sitting there. I looked in the media again a few days ago. There's no new updates. I'm going to try to reach out to the family and see if there's a way that I could get more information. I asked for the police reports from Marion County, which they gave me the redacted police reports for Sarah. But when I asked for the redacted police reports for these two lovely humans, they didn't give them to me. So I'm going to tackle that again early next week to see why I'm not getting redacted police reports, because that is, they should be able to give me at least that. They gave me that. Sarah, I got 31 pages redacted police reports when I requested them. And now they're telling me they're not giving me the police reports on Erica and Camarcus. So I'm not understanding that. So I have to follow up on that. And they have a nice, they have a sign. Sarah has a sign similar to this that Michelle raised money for. She has a billboard. Actually, she has a sign like this and she has a billboard. And now the family of the Brooks family has put up this big sign that's over on the highway near in between, I think it's in between Dunellen and Ocala. So I'm going to try to reach out and see if I can make contact with this family soon. I've also met a new family. This is, just devastating. Hunter's family. I met with them. I met a family member of theirs on Facebook, and then I was able to contact the father, and he just sent me missing flyers. So I'm going to put those up. I'm going to be going out to some of the homeless shelters here tomorrow. I was going to go today, but we had another high heat alert. And so my body cannot tolerate this. We've been in the 90s with, it feels like 105.
It's been so hot.
Yeah, I've just been trying to not be out and about at all during the day right now while we go through this nasty month of August. But I am going to go out tomorrow and drop a few of his flyers off to the homeless shelters here, just on the outside chance that maybe he made his way up here to Daytona Beach. So he has been missing now for 8 weeks. He left without his wallet, without his phone. He's not dangerous. He's not a threat to anyone, just having a real hard time in life right now, having some depression issues. So anyone in Florida, if you recognize him, or even if you think you do, he might have more facial hair now, like on the left side picture, please contact me and I can give you his father's number, or just call your local police department if you think you've seen him and report that you might have seen Hunter. But I'll let you know updates on this as I get them. So I just want to run through real quick, just brief updates on the women who have been unalived by their partners that we've been advocating for the past year since we started live streaming. Just taking a drink there for a second of water. I wanted to have my nasty Diet Coke today, but I decided not to. I've tried to be really good now because, guys, when you get to be my age, your stomach does not tolerate soda as much anymore. So when I drink diet soda, I probably end up getting a stomach ache most of the time. And I know I shouldn't drink it, but I can't help it. I crave it every once in a while because that darn Diet Coke, I started out with that stuff when I was in the dorms. Way back in 1981, when I was a freshman in the dorms, Diet Coke was all the rage. It hadn't been around for all that long. And
good little burn every now and then is good.
Yeah, it's like every once in a while, I just have to have. I never liked Diet Pepsi. I've always found that to be interesting. The question people ask you, are you a Pepsi or a Coke drinker? I have never liked Pepsi. To me, Pepsi tastes like medicine. I've never liked it. But other people say Diet Coke tastes like flat compared to Pepsi. And, you got your Pepsi people, you got your Coke people, but all around, guys, it's bad for us. Soda's bad for us. So
yeah,
because it's really bad for your stomach. But every once in a while when I live stream, I just want to have a Diet Coke with me, but I decided no Diet Coke today.
Good for you.
stuck with water. So, so these are three of our domestic violence victims that we've been advocating for. Ellen Greenberg is on the left, as you look at the screen with the dark hair. In the middle is Suzanne Morphew, and then on the right with the pretty flyer that one of her advocates, I believe it was Mizzy or Mizzy's cousin, made this for Sandra on her birthday a couple years ago. These three beautiful, vibrant women who had their whole lives ahead of them were unalived by their either current fiance, current husband, or current boyfriend. In the case of Ellen Greenberg, allegedly we believe it was her fiance, but he's never been a suspect, never been arrested. Her case is still considered an unaliving of herself. And I've done several live streams on her. If you're interested in more of the thorough details, you can go into our library, just go under our live stream tab, and you can find Ellen Greenberg's live streams that we've done on her very sad and what we believe is just an atrocious obstruction of her justice. Then you have Suzanne Morphew in the middle, and we do believe that her husband unalived her. He has now been arrested for the second time. They have a lot more evidence now. The first time they had to release him because they they pulled the trigger too quickly, and they arrested him before they really had enough that they could take to trial. So the DA wasn't willing to arraign him and finish the prosecution of him. So just weeks before his trial, they released him and dropped the charges. That was very devastating for Suzanne's family because the evidence, now again, he is innocent until proven guilty, but based on all of the evidence that I have seen, and I have been following this case now since you originally went missing before I started live streaming, I personally do believe that he is the perpetrator. Sandra Birchmore, now, she was groomed since she was only 13 years old by the Stoughton police, 4 Stoughton police officers, we believe. One of them is now in custody, and we have live streamed about Sandra Birchmore as well. You can find those in our library if you're interested in advocating for Sandra and her unborn child. Matthew Farwell has been in jail since August, and he has yet to have a hearing. Every time he's due for his preliminary hearing, they change the date. They change the date. They change the date. He was supposed to have a preliminary hearing coming up in the next few days. Now we find out today, thanks to Mizzy, that they changed the date to October. So now this is getting frustrating for people that are advocating for Sandra Birchmore. Why do they keep changing the date of his preliminary hearing? What is going on? And so it's concerning. Hopeful in that maybe his lawyers are working with him to name others that were involved in her demise, name others who were grooming her before she was 18. We don't know because there's no information coming out. There's nothing being shared with the public whatsoever. So that case has become very frustrating for those that are wanting to see justice done for Sandra Birchmore, long overdue justice, because her death was originally ruled an unaliving of herself because Matthew Farwell framed her to make it look like she unalived herself. And that's what we believe happened with Ellen Greenberg, an amazing, wonderful teacher, had her whole life ahead of her. She, as you can see in this picture on the left, she had gotten engaged to Sam Goldberg, and things seemed to be great until they weren't. And she started showing signs of depression and confided in her parents that she was having anxiety, but not really telling anyone why, and was seeking counseling when hang on, I'm going to put us in a different preview here. When on January 26, 2011, she was found by her fiance with 20 stab wounds to her body. And the police immediately called it an unaliving of herself before they even knew she had 20. They originally only thought she had 10 to the front of her body. They didn't even find the other 10 until the next day when the medical examiner went to do her autopsy and discovered she had 10 more for a total of 20. And he ruled it a homicide at that point. 3 months later, after a very bizarre meeting with the police, the Philadelphia police, he was encouraged to change it to an unaliving of herself based on, they said, their investigation. But they didn't do an investigation. They never, ever considered her fiance as a suspect. And they never checked the apartment for any DNA, for fibers, for hair, for evidence. They allowed the apartment manager to clean the apartment the following day after her death. There is so much suspect absolute nonsense that went on in the original days of Ellen Greenberg's death. It's just so egregious. And her family has been fighting for this unaliving of herself to be overturned back to a homicide for 14 years. It's utterly shocking. And they finally were in court in January and February, and they were about to choose the jury because they were suing several members of the medical examiner's office and the police and the government, the city of Philadelphia. And they ended up getting a letter from the original ME, and he stated that he was reversing his decision, that he got it wrong, and that if he was still the medical examiner in Philadelphia, because he's not any longer, he moved to Florida, that he would overrule himself, and he recanted it and said that it was a homicide. Now, when that happened, the defense for the city of Philadelphia and for the ME, they wanted to strike up a deal with her parents, with Ellen's parents. They didn't want this to go to the jury trial. So they offered them a deal. And part of the deal that they were willing to take was a small monetary payout for over hundreds of thousands of dollars that they've had to pay for a private investigator, for their own medical examiner, for everything they've had to do to get justice for their daughter. And then also they wanted the Philadelphia, the current ME, to take a look at the case and change it back to a homicide. Well, so far, all that's happened is they finally got this small monetary pittance a few days ago, and the ME still has not released any new information, has not even said if he or she has looked at the case again. So now we're in a stall again for Ellen Greenberg, for justice for her. It's absolutely despicable. The entire city government of Philadelphia, the Philadelphia Police Department, they should be so ashamed of themselves for what they have put this poor girl's family through. It's utterly horrific. And again, never was considered a suspect, but yet her autopsy showed that she had many bruises on her body, and this was the key, in various stages of healing. Now, unless Ellen Greenberg decided to take up gymnastics or professional ice skating, figure skating as a pairs partner, how is it that she has bruises all over her body in various degrees of healing? That's
horrible.
That's a key evidence of her having been struck or punched or hit over the course of many, many, many months. So this is my opinion only. It's my theory, and it's many others' theory that he unalived her, and then he framed her for her own passing, and that he had help, that he had friends. His uncle was a very prominent judge at the time in Philadelphia, in Pennsylvania, that could have possibly put the pressure on the Philadelphia police to sweep this under the rug and have it ruled an unaliving of herself and never to be looked at again. And that's exactly what happened. But her parents didn't give up. They were never going to give up on their daughter. Then we moved to Colorado with Suzanne Morphew, who we've been advocating for since her passing in 2020. Just started live streaming last year, but I have followed this case since the beginning in my social medias and personally. I never believed that Suzanne went off on a bike ride and just never came home, and somebody abducted her. She got eaten by a big cat, as Barry wanted all of us to believe in one of his interviews that he made. Yeah, exactly. Stephanie, Ellen did not do that to herself. There is absolutely no way. And Suzanne, they were in the middle of a contentious possible separation coming up and divorce. They owned a lot of property together. They had quite a portfolio together, it sounds like. So their money could have been the reason why he tried to, why he unalived her and tried to get away with it, so that he could, keep their house and keep all their money. There's really no other reason why he would have done it. He was originally arrested in 2021 in connection with her May 2020 disappearance on Mother's Day. But those charges were dismissed in April of 2022, and they filed a motion to dismiss the case. And then as far as the public was concerned, since then, it was like a cold case. We weren't hearing anything. The media wasn't commenting on Suzanne. There was very little going on with the exception of her Justice Facebook page and her Justice Twitter accounts that myself was making and others were making. And then in a total shock, while we were live streaming on a Friday Night Lives, it came out that he had been arrested in Arizona. This was just a little over a month ago now. And that they charged him with the murder. And she was missing for quite a long time. And they found her accidentally. Had they not found her, I don't think there's any way that they could have charged him, because there was issues with the DA with the first case, and she was disbarred, the prosecutor, for making comments that she shouldn't have made in the media. And so that was a big to do. And then had they not found Suzanne, they wouldn't have known how she died. They wouldn't have known what happened to her. So I think he would have gotten away with it. But they were looking for another missing person in the same, about 50 miles away from where Suzanne lived and went missing. And so they found her. So he thought he was smart. He thought he put her far enough away from their house and where police would have looked for her in a search range of what's considered, typical search range for a missing person. She was in a shallow grave, and they were looking for another missing person. And I truly believe that was just completely God or serendipity or fate, however you want to look at it. And they do believe, based on the autopsy, that she was moved. So he had her somewhere else and got scared and moved her out there 50 miles away. And there was this chemical cocktail found in her bloodstream that is indicative of what a person uses in a tranquilizer gun when they tranquilize an animal. And Barry is the only person in the state of Colorado that had a license for such a chemical. Even the national park people didn't even have a license that year. It's so bizarre that he brought it with him from Indiana, where they used to live, because he's a game hunter. And somehow he was able to get a license to have this in Colorado. And this is what was found in her bloodstream. So the evidence is very strong against him now that they were able to, find her and do this autopsy on her remains. So now we're waiting to find out what's going to happen with his trial. So I'll keep you all updated on the trial of Barry Morphew and Suzanne. And as I said, Sandra Birchmore, now we're back in stall pattern. Now we have to wait till October for any more information on what's going to happen with Matthew Farwell. His brother is living and working. He left the state of Massachusetts. He's living out west somewhere. His twin brother, who we believe could have been involved in this grooming. The other officer, Heil, his name is, he's going through a decertification hearings right now. He's claiming that he doesn't want to lose his license and that he only had sex with her after she turned 18 and that he didn't know anything about Matthew Farwell. I find that incredibly hard to believe. That he didn't know, but it's possible. So we'll see what happens with his decertification. And then William Devane, who was the supervisor of all of the Farwell twins when they were in the academy, when they were in this academy, when they were teenagers, he was their supervisor. And it has been alleged that he knew full well what was going on with Sandra Birchmore and that he was involved in her grooming as well, and possibly other girls. So he's been going through a decertification. So it's all amping up now for justice for Sandra Birchmore. It really is just a matter of time. It seems to be taking forever for those that want justice for her, which it should be everybody in the world should want justice for Sandra Birchmore. Her youth was stolen from her by people she trusted, by people we should all trust, by police officers. So, but it's frustrating because justice isn't always fast. Justice can be very, very slow, and especially if the feds are involved. So this case is now, he's not even being charged by the state of Massachusetts. He's only right now being charged federally by the FBI are the ones that went through with this investigation the way it should have been handled. Massachusetts State Police, absolute travesty the way they handled the Sandra Birchmore case. So we can only hope that now when October comes, that he has two two different hearings set up for October, according to Mizzy, her lead advocate, and we'll keep you updated on those as we get together. But these are the four men, in my opinion, should be in prison. Not totally sure about Joshua Heald. Don't know if he actually did anything illegal, but if he was having sex with her while on duty, that's a crime. A police officer cannot get paid and be on duty and be engaging in that type of activity. So he could be at least charged with that. But what happens with Matthew, who's now has been in custody since last August, his brother William, who's out west somewhere, and Robert Devine, who's still in Massachusetts fighting his decertification. And we'll keep you up to date on all of them. Another very sad, tragic ending to a beautiful woman's life was the mother of five, Jennifer Dulos. And if any of you, Barbara Dulos, if any of you followed the Michelle Troconis trial, Michelle Troconis, the girlfriend of Jennifer's soon-to-be ex-husband. Jennifer and her husband, Fotis Dulos, were in the process of getting a divorce, and they were having a lot of custody issues because Jennifer didn't really want the kids with him because he was displaying erratic behavior, and she was afraid of him, and rightfully so, because we do believe that he took her life. He put her somewhere she's never been found. He disposed of her like garbage, and she's never been found. Her poor family has no closure. Then they arrested him because they had evidence that led them to believe that he tampered with evidence, that he hid her body. They didn't have evidence that he was the one that unalived her at that point, but they had a lot of other evidence, and against his girlfriend as well. So they let him out on bail, and he offed himself. He unalived himself in the car in the garage of their home. So he did not stand trial. He never told a single soul where this lovely woman is buried or what he did with her. And then Michelle Troconis was charged for not cooperating with the police investigation and for being involved with possibly hiding her remains and knowing what happened. And she ended up getting sentenced to, I believe it was 14 years in jail for whatever role the jury believes she played in the aftermath of her death. She swore that she didn't know that Fotis was going to do this. She swore that she didn't know where he put her, but she was in the truck with him on surveillance camera, dropping off bags of garbage all around two different cities. So you're going to tell us, Michelle, that you are just going to ride around with your boyfriend while his wife is missing, dropping off garbage bags at various dumpsters in two different communities. And that made sense to you. So I don't have any sympathy for her. I'm glad the jury put her in jail for 14 years. She claimed that she was abused as well, and that he brainwashed her because he was Fotis Dulos and he could do these things. And I mean, I don't know. It's hard. It's very hard to say. She could have been abused by him. He was a narcissist, but for her to drive around with him like that and watch him drop off garbage bags while his wife is missing is chilling. And there's something very wrong with her. And so we'll see if she ends up writing a book, or, a lot of these people, once they get put in jail for their nefarious crimes, they end up writing books and giving interviews. I just hope that someday someone may have seen something that they just didn't realize, and then they call the tip line and they find her, and they can reunite her remains so they can have a proper funeral. So Sarah is in this picture. These are our missing women who were, we believe, unalived by their partners. I still believe that Sarah was unalived by someone she was close to. Suzanne Clark Simpson's husband is under arrest. That hearing is still up in the air. He had an initial appearance, but there's been nothing more in the media at all about her case, and she is still missing. He's pleading not guilty, even though there seems to be evidence against him and evidence against one of his friends who was hiding a possible murder weapon. So her body has still not been recovered, and Ashley Lachey Elkin's body has still not been recovered, and her boyfriend was arrested and is pleading not guilty. So you have these three beautiful women who were most certainly unalived by their partners and have not been found. And so all we can do is advocate for anybody who might have seen something to call in to the tip lines. That all three of these lovely women have tip lines with their local police departments. And I'll keep giving you updates as much as I can. And in the meantime, Sarah Ebersol is so close to me. It's only 2 hours away where she went missing. So I'll continue to get updates from the family and hopefully myself, if I can get a hold of of the sheriffs again and get any kind of update I can from them. And all we can do now is advocate for all of these beautiful souls who are no longer with us, who have been alived by the hands of someone else, and pray that they can be reunited with their families. And for those who have already been found and who are in heaven, we can just keep working on justice for them. That's what we can do as advocates. Our newest case that I'm trying to get a hold of someone from the family, because as you know, I like to get permission to advocate. I'll do it without it because I want to advocate for anyone that's been unalived by their husband or boyfriend. But I really like to get permission from the family for me to really go deep into these lovely ladies' cases. So trying to reach out to someone now from the family of Anna Walsh, who I believe was unalived by Brian Welsh. And the scary thing now about this situation is that the officers who completely effed up the Karen Reed, John O'Keefe case and John O'Keefe's death are the same officers that have now apparently effed up collecting evidence on Anna Walsh's disappearance. We have never found her yet. She is still missing. I 100% believe that her husband unalived her. That's my opinion based on the evidence and based on what I've learned and garnered. But now he's basically claiming that some of this evidence is fruit of the poison tree, as they call it. So when the law enforcement doesn't use proper search warrants or collects evidence in an improper way, that evidence can then be completely gone from the case. And without that evidence, they may not have enough to continue. They may have to release him like they did Barry Morphew, but they could release him in a way that if there is more evidence or if they do find her body, that they could rearrest him. Now, if they release him in a different way, then that would just be it. They would never be able to arrest him again. So this has come down to a very scary point now for the Anna Walsh family because of the bad actions and choices by Proctor and Bukaki, who also were Buchanan, but who were also officers in the John O'Keefe investigation and the what we believe to be a frame job of Karen Reed. So she's thankfully acquitted and free, but John O'Keefe is still gone and there's no justice for him either. And now you've got these same dirty cops messing up an investigation for this lovely mother and woman who has been missing now. I believe it's been almost 2 years. Let me go back and see when. Yeah, it was 2 years in January. So interestingly enough, a lot of these ladies that we're advocating for, the time frames are all very close, Brittany. They're all like very close. They all happened in early 2023 or a little or earlier in 2022. It's really scary. But as advocates, like I said, all we can do as advocates is continue to say their names, speak their names, give you updates on whatever's happening with their families and their cases, and continue to stand for them until there's justice for them. And if it gets to a point where it doesn't look good anymore, we'll always have them in our Social Change Warriors wall of advocacy. Even if we have to move on to newer cases that are an update, we'll always continue to show the pictures of all of the victims that we have stood for since we started our live stream show almost a year ago.
Thank you for all you do.
Thank you, Brittany, for all you do. Thank you for not just turning, you could just walk away and get on with your life and deal with your grief. You don't have to advocate for all these other people. You don't have to advocate for Dishaun, but you are. So thank you. You're his angel, and Stephanie and all of his family. And we'll continue to look into his case and see what, if any, justice we can try to get for all of you in the next coming months. And thank you for being a support to me. I appreciate your messages of support on Facebook and in emails. Thank you. I'm looking forward to meeting you in person soon. I'm glad we're not far away. All right, my dear, I'll see you very soon.
God bless you and thank you for everything. See you soon.
See you soon, my dear. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me tonight on Calling Out Corruption. I really appreciate all of you that are willing to stand for victims of homicides and their families who have no justice, and for the missing who we believed were unalived by either a family member or a husband or a boyfriend, and they have not been found yet and they have no justice. So we will continue our work. We will continue advocating. And I'm not sure what our schedule is going to look like the rest of the summer. We won't be here every Wednesday and every Thursday, but we're going to continue our every Friday night show, and we'll be weaving in some updates on all of our cases that we're working on Wednesdays and Thursdays on the ground. And then when I have enough new information to bring to you, I'll always let you know a couple days in advance if I'm going to be live on a Wednesday or on a Thursday. But for now, we will be live every Friday with continuing our coverage of Justice for John O'Keefe and other cases that are happening with Julie, our resident Bostonian in Massachusetts. And I'll be weaving in some of these other cases on Friday nights as well. So thank you for joining me tonight. Thank you for caring about others. And I hope you all stay very safe. And we'll be back soon tomorrow night with Friday Night Lies, and then possibly next week with Wednesday or Thursday. And I'll let you all know when those lives will appear again. Thank you, everyone. It's just us. My life mattered.
They try to silence the truth we shout, but we're still here, we're still calling out. Corruption hides behind a badge and name. We light the fire, expose the shame. We're justice seekers, we'll fight the fight for every voice lost in the night. My life mattered is the cry we sing for the ones they tried to bury within. It's just us, we're a movement wide. Together we rise, won't run nor hide. The stories echo, the pain runs deep. For stolen lives we can't just weep. Elected power but their hearts are cold. We'll bring the truth, let it be told. We're justice seekers, we'll fight the fight for every voice lost in the night. My life mattered is the cry we sing for the ones they tried to bury within. It's just us, we're a movement wide. Together we rise, won't run nor hide. We're justice seekers, we'll fight the fight for heal wounds, undo the harm. Calling out corruption, we'll stand tall for justice and truth, we'll risk it all. My life mattered is the cry we sing. Together we rise, let freedom ring. They try to silence the truth we shout, but we're still here, we're still calling out. Corruption hides behind a badge and name. We light the fire, expose the shame. We're justice seekers, we'll fight the fight for every voice lost in the night. My life mattered is the cry we sing for the ones they tried to bury with us. We're a movement wide. Together we rise, won't run nor hide. The stories echo, the pain runs deep. For stolen lives we can't just weep. Elected power but their hearts are cold. We'll bring the truth, let it be told. We're justice seekers, we'll fight the fight. For every voice lost in the night. My life mattered is the cry we sing. For the ones they tried to bury within. It's just us, we're a movement wide. Together we rise, won't run nor hide. We're justice seekers, we'll fight the fight. The heroes undo the harm. Calling out corruption, we'll stand tall. For justice and truth, we'll risk it all. My life mattered is the cry we sing. Together